Hi everyone, welcome to Introvert Reflection once again. In the previous video we were studying about function and we'll continue with the function in this video also. So in the previous video we studied about simple function and parameterized function. In this video we'll study about validations and function accepting pipeline and inputs, pipeline as an input. So let's go to the lab and study. So you see this is my new function in which before this I would strongly recommend, if somebody has directly come to this video, please watch the previous video, because this is in continuation with the previous video, because in previous video we have kind of studied in detail about the parameterized functions. So in this video, in the previous video, we see that these are the functions and we are accepting arguments, 3 arguments, and performing the summation, and then based on the summation we are printing these messages. Now in this video, 2 things I have, this attributes I have added now, this attribute and this attribute. Now if you want any of the parameters to be mandatory, you have to add these parameters, these attributes you have to write. So how do you write this? Under bracket parameters, mandatory, true. And this is a help message, that if suppose you want, please enter the first number, you want to any of the message, if you want to write, you can write. So if you write before the argument, if you write this attribute, it will become mandatory. Similarly in the second argument, I have written this mandatory. So my first and second arguments are mandatory, third is not mandatory, and then I am performing this summation, and then based on the summation I am performing this logical operation. So I'll run this test9. Now this is loaded in the memory. Now I'll go and call this test9, and you see earlier if I write this is mandatory. So you see command pipeline position 1, supply values for the following parameters. This is for help. Now suppose you want help, like this is the mandatory field and you want to get what is happening, so type this for help. You type this and this, you see, please enter the first number to calculate sum. So this was the text which is coming, so I'll write this 4. Now my second parameter is also mandatory. When I'll write it, will prompt for second also, I'll write for it, then I'll enter. As my third parameter is not mandatory, it has calculated, sum is 12. So this is like this. If you will provide, like even if you go and test 9, if you provide the first argument, if you don't provide the second argument, it will ask for second argument, and 67 suppose, and then you enter based on the sum is 70. So this way you put validation, and you can put any of the arguments as mandatory. So this is the one way test 9. Now another function I have is, if suppose you want any of the regular expressions validations, if you want. Now suppose in this a little bit is changed in this function. I am accepting these 3 parameters, 2 are mandatory and the third is not mandatory, and I'm accepting this 4th parameter also. This is student name. This parameter is mandatory and the validation is, you see, A to Z, means it can accept only alphabetics, ABCD to Z. It cannot accept the numerical values. So I can go and run this function. Now it is loaded in the memory. Now if I go and run this test 10, now the first is mandatory, so it will, if I go and just run this, it will ask for first. I'll write 3, it will ask for second. I'll write 5, it will ask for third. Now the third, you see, the student name is it's asking, which is my 4th parameter, student name. Now if I provide in the student name 78, I have put this validation pattern also. It should be A to Z only, not a numerical values. If I go and enter, it will throw error. You see, what is the error? It cannot validate argument parameter student name. The argument 70 does not match the A to Z parameter. So it should be between A to Z. Now if I go and call this test, and if I go and write 2, 3, 4, if I write enter, it is asking me for a student name. If I go and write suppose Robert, and if I enter, now you see it is executed. The student name Robert is failed as sum is 9 only, and it should be greater than 10. He requires minimum 10 to pass. So this way you can put regular expression validations also. Like if you want any email is there, you can put in regular validation. If any pattern is there, you can put the pattern validation. Suppose you any of the like social security number or NRIC you require, you can put in like A to Z, and like suppose A to Z, and the third argument you are accepting is suppose 0 to 9, 0 to 9, something like that you can put in, and that would be like the argument would be validated based on that pattern. So this way you can put validations. Now we have studied the validations. Now we'll study this one, function accepting the pipeline. Now this is useful where suppose you have made a function and you are getting the data. Now here in the above functions 9 and 10 which we discussed, we are providing the input from the command prompt itself. Now suppose you are getting the value from some other places and you are piping through it. We have explained the pipes in detail in the previous video. Pipe is like if I am writing get service and am I piping it to format table. So what it's doing, get service will pull the collection of the services and it will pass that data to the format table and it will then format. Similarly, if you are like you have this, how this is format table is a function. So similarly, you have created one function named test, and you are not providing the input value from the command prompt. You have the input value coming from a different command. So in that case, this function which accepts the value from pipeline is very useful. So I'll show you how we do it. Now suppose this is the function test commandlet. This is the mandatory and the helpful. Only thing I have added this property value from pipeline and I made it true. Now if I made it true, I have two parameters, first and second. These two values can be provided from the pipeline, like from the left pipeline. So you will get another you'll get better idea if I run it. Like I have run it and now it is loaded in the memory. I have run this also. Now you see variable 10. Variable 10 is a value of 10. So I am piping this variable 10 value. I'm piping this variable 10 value to test 10. Say I'm piping this variable 10 value to test 10. Now variable 10 is 10. What is value 10? 10 would be passed to this method and then it will calculate the sum. If I run this, you see its value is 10. So 10 is passed in the first parameter because it is also accepting from this. Now this is also passed in the second parameter. Second parameter is also accepting value from pipeline 10. So 10 and plus 10, both sum is 20. Now suppose I comment this. Now only my first parameter is accepting value from the pipeline and second is not. If I go and run this, it's now the edited function is loaded in the memory. Now if I go and run this, you see the value is 10 only because only one parameter is accepting value from the pipeline and second is not. So only 10 is there and the sum is first and the second is by default coming 0. So it's 10. I'll get a better idea regarding this. Now suppose I have written this function which is getting the value from the pipeline, which is true, and the field is mandatory, and what it's doing is it's iterating through the collection. This is the collection which will accept, iterating through the collection, and in that collection if the name is like B or something star, it is writing in the console. What it's doing, it's iterating to the console, and if the object's name is like B star, like B and something, and it's writing to the console. Now suppose I am writing get service, and now this will list down all the service. It has a collection. I am piping it to my method, this method. Now what will happen? Get service will pull all the collection of services. It will pass to this write process with name. Here it will value from the pipeline. It will accept value from this pipe beyond, and then it will iterate to the object. And if the service name is starting with P, and it will write to the console. So you see, it has processed only these services are starting from B. If you go and get the service, you see, if you go and get the service, there are lot many services, but only these services. And now this is my inbuilt function, so it is kind of fetching all the services which is starting from. So this is the way through which we create functions which accept the value from the pipeline. Now we have covered the functions almost. One thing is functions what if and confirm. This I have already confirmed where we use what if and where we use confirm. Actually, what if you are like terrified with what will be the output of that command, so you can write append what if, and it will prompt the results what will happen. So this I have already covered. I'll try to make another video on this. If you are liking the video, please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.